Welcome. My name is Hans Navy. I manage the closed landfills program at MPCA. Thank you for your interest in the Pigs Eye Dump, and thank you for your willingness to complete the survey. Pigs Eye Dump operated from 1956 to 1972 in the city of St. Paul at 230 acres of waste. It is the largest unpermitted dump in Minnesota. The dump is very unfortunately situated near a lot of water, adjacent to the Mississippi River on the shores of Pigs Eye Lake. Battle Creek runs right through the middle of the waste area. The contaminants we're most concerned about are the PFAS chemicals, 1,4-dioxane, and metals. Most of the contamination story is happening underground. Below the surface, there's a large body of waste. There is no liner, there is no impermeable cover. As rainwater, floodwater, and groundwater come in contact with the waste, contamination is leached into the environment, moving into groundwater, moving into Battle Creek, moving into Pigs Eye Lake, also contaminating sediments in Pigs Eye Lake adjacent to the waste. A multi-agency task force has been formed to coordinate efforts to remediate and restore the Pigs Eye Dump. The final report is due to the legislature February 15th, 2026. There are 11 members on the task force, including 3 counties, 3 cities, and 5 other government organizations. A plan to remediate and restore the Pigs Eye Dump. When we say remediate, we're talking about a plan for environmental cleanup of contamination coming from the waste. And when we say restore, we're talking about a plan for future land use on the property. Remediation and restoration are very much interrelated as future land use options are expanded or limited by the plan for environmental cleanup. Future land use options fall into 3 different categories. There are options focused on recreation, options focused on future use as a natural area, and commercial industrial future uses. It's 2 different kinds of recreation choices. One is active recreation use. This is where facilities would be constructed to support the recreation. Examples are hiking trails, sports facilities, or a children's park. There's also more passive recreation options where there's access to the property, but also a nature area focus. This is similar to the current land use. It would involve minimal upkeep of the property. Future use as a nature area there could be expanded wetland areas on the property, also expansion of habitat and native vegetation. There's a wide variety of commercial industrial uses possible that range from solar reuse, greenhouse urban farming, outdoor material storage, even manufacturing office space in certain scenarios. Additional environmental cleanup is needed at the Pigs Eye Dump. What needs cleanup? At the top of the list is the waste. The waste is an ongoing source of contamination and is the focus of the Pigs Eye Task Force work. Also on the list of what needs cleanup are the contamination in the Pigs Eye Lake sediments, contamination in groundwater, and contamination coming from upstream sources contributing to the contamination load on the property. For the Pigs Eye Lake sediments, the groundwater, and the upstream sources, cleanup plans for these items will be developed by MPCA in a separate effort with opportunity for public comment. The focus of the task force work is a cleanup plan for the waste. And there are 4 options that are being considered. The first is a cleanup option called targeted waste relocation and filter. In this option, a small amount of waste would be excavated in areas where it's closest to the water. This is the shores of Pigs Eye Lake and adjacent to Battle Creek. In the excavated area, a filtering material would be installed with the objective of capturing contamination as it moves through the filtering material. This is the lower cost option. Construction costs $30 million, less than 5 years to construct, and a 30-year long-term operating cost of $6 million projected for this option. There are also three higher cost options that are being considered. All of the three high cost options start the same way, but they have different outcomes in the end. So for the dig and haul no backfill option, also known as New Pig's Eye Lake, this option begins with excavating all the waste and hauling it to a permanent landfill for disposal. In this option, the area would not be backfilled and the excavated area would become a lake and a wetland. Digging up all the waste is an easy thing to say, but it would be no small matter to implement. Construction costs would be $720 million. This would take 8 to 10 years. Generally lower 30-year operating costs for this option at $1.5 million. Also being considered is a dig and haul with backfill option. Again, all the waste would be excavated. It would be hauled to a permanent facility for disposal, and the area would be backfilled with clean fill. Construction cost $830 million, 10 plus years to complete, 30-year operating cost $6 million. The dig and line cleanup option, also called New Pig's Eye Landfill, again, all the waste would be excavated, but the waste would stay on the property. We would build a new modern landfill on the property to contain the waste. Construction cost $570 million, 10 plus years to complete. The 30-year operating cost for the new landfill, higher than the others, $45 million to operate the new landfill for 30 years. It's important to note that these are all very preliminary cost estimates and a plan for funding has not yet been established. For the remainder of the presentation, I want to join together the different reuse possibilities with the cleanup plans and see what they look like together and highlight what the limitations are. So for targeted waste relocation and filter, again, excavating a small amount of waste where it's near water, installing a filter material to capture contamination. This would reduce some of the contamination, but it certainly wouldn't be eliminated. And the effectiveness would be determined by the filtering material. More research would be needed to get the best filtering material we possibly could get. Once constructed, there are different reuse possibilities. Recreational reuses could expand the current passive recreational use. There could also be a future recreation use that's more active with the construction of some facilities. Future use as a nature area would be limited by the effectiveness of the cleanup. Commercial industrial use would be limited to more flood tolerant uses in this cleanup scenario. The dig and haul no backfill option, also known as New Pig's Eye Lake. The main future reuse would be a nature area, as the area would become a lake and a wetland. There's also opportunity for limited recreational uses. This would be limited to paddling activities and wildlife observation. The dig and haul and backfill option has a more wide range of possible reuses that's really determined for each of the scenarios by the amount of backfill that's installed. For recreation, more backfills, larger trail systems, even buildings, if we backfill above the flood area, but less aquatic use. Less backfill, smaller trail systems, more aquatic use. Future use as a nature area, more backfill, more upland habitat, less backfill, more wetland habitat. For commercial industrial uses, more backfill opens up possibilities for things that are above the flood level, solar, commercial industrial buildings. Less backfill, we're limited to more flood tolerant uses. For the cleanup choice that is dig and line, also known as New Pig's Eye Landfill, when the waste was dumped here in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, this was not a good place for this much waste. Today, it's not the greatest place for a new landfill. A new landfill could be constructed. There would be some challenges, both with construction and also long-term operation and maintenance, but it could be done. Once constructed, there would be possibilities for recreation. Recreational choices, recreation on or adjacent to the landfill gap, or recreation in adjacent areas determined by the amount of backfill. Use as a nature area could be pollinator habitat on the new landfill cap, or wetland area in adjacent areas depending on the amount of backfill. Commercial industrial solar reuse on the new landfill and limited flood-tolerant uses in adjacent areas. For the dig and line option, a couple of important things to note. One is the landfill footprint would be smaller than the current footprint, but the height would be much taller in the new landfill. We would pile the waste high. This would change the topography and the landscape and would impact the recreation experience. In some cases, the change in topography could be an enhancement. Mountain bike trails would be one example. In other cases, recreation or natural use adjacent to a constructed landfill would have a limiting effect on the recreation experience. I want to say thank you for your interest in the Pigseye Dump and thank you for completing the survey.